There is the material aspect of life and the consciousness aspect of life. And some philosophers and scientists say that consciousness comes from the functioning of the body. But there are many questions that are left unanswered when you take this angle. So I dive deep into what is consciousness, because consciousness is primary. Without consciousness, we don't know anything, we don't experience anything. Without consciousness, we don't feel love, we don't feel miracles, we don't feel pain, we don't feel joys, we don't understand anything.
Welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. This is the place to be if you want to live in the flow of synchronicities and miracles in your everyday life. I'm your host, Marci Shimoff. I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author. I'm a teacher in The Secret and the creator of the worldwide program, Your Year of Miracles. And I have spent my life studying happiness and miracles. And in this podcast, we bring to you extraordinary stories that will inspire you and groundbreaking miracle tools that will show you how you can live your most miraculous life. And it is my heartfelt intention that we have a fabulous time together. So welcome to the Miracle Zone. And today I am thrilled. I'm thrilled because I'm joined by someone I have for decades admired and gotten to access his brilliant wisdom, and that is the wonderful Dr. Tony Nader. So, Dr. Nader, I am so happy to get to be here with you today. Thank you.
Marci, thank you. You're very kind. It's my joy and honor and pleasure to be with you.
Well, I got the great pleasure of interviewing you a few years ago, and I have to say it was one of the most fascinating and enlightening conversations. So I'm delighted to be back with you today, as I know that there's so much more extraordinary wisdom that you have to share. So let me formally introduce you to people who may not know of you and your amazing background. So Dr. Tony Nader is a medical doctor. He was trained at Harvard and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He has a Ph.D. in neuroscience. He's a globally recognized expert in the science of consciousness and human development. And Dr. Nader's training includes internal medicine and psychiatry and neurology. And really, he has spent his life researching the full potential of the human physiology and mind. And Dr. Nader has worked with the greatest thinkers, the greatest scientists and doctors in the world today, sharing how we can live our full potential. And he answers the deepest questions about life. He's received numerous awards for his remarkable contributions in human development and environment and education and health. And for many, many decades, Dr. Nader worked very closely with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who is the founder of the Transcendental Meditation program, also known as TM. And in 2008, Maharishi named him the head of the Transcendental Meditation organizations around the world. He has been the successor to Maharishi, which he has been leading ever since then. And Dr. Nader is a best-selling author of One Unbounded Ocean of Consciousness, and his fabulous new book is Consciousness is All There Is. And so you have quite a remarkable, amazing background. I got to know you because I started TM when I was 16 years old. And it changed my life. And in fact, I don't think I've ever shared this in the podcast, but I got my undergraduate degree from Maharishi International University, where everyone there, the students and the faculty and the staff, everyone practiced TM, Transcendental Meditation. It was an amazing place. I think it's probably the only university in the world where the education is based in the study of consciousness. And so Dr. Nader has been an icon in my world. He is a brilliant mind and a very, very expanded being and such a deeply, deeply good person. And so it's very special to get to have you here.
Wonderful, Marci, wonderful. They say beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, and you see such depths of beauty in everything. And I hope I come to the level of your expectations.
Oh, well, you always do. And it's who you are. So, Well, in this podcast, we talk about how people have come to live a miraculous life. And I know, maybe we could start by having you tell us the story of how you went from a young boy from Beirut, Lebanon, into living this miraculous life that you now live, leading people in consciousness.
Indeed, for me at least, it really felt miraculous. Coming from a small country, growing with very high expectations about the beauty of life, the miracle of life and living, and having so many cultures around me that were actually living together in rather harmonious conditions, and expecting to become a doctor because it was my family's tradition in quite some ways, having in my extended family as much as 17 physicians,
Wow.
including uncles and cousins and granduncles and aunts and different people. And so I was guided towards that thing that is the understanding of human physiology and how to help people. And when I finished high school, a civil war exploded in the country. And I was starting my medical school, and I had to see people killing each other, people actually dying for things that's supposed to be an inspiration, like belief systems, belief in economy and politics, whatever philosophical understanding and belief systems. And those things that were supposed to be inspiring for living together and harmony and all that were actually the cause of fight and really very, very hard time. And being a medical doctor, I find myself in the emergency room and the hospital on the wards, seeing all kinds of things that even one wouldn't want to talk about. So the serious effects to the family, and not only the family, all my friends and the environment, and even the whole understanding of life and living and the purpose of being here and why we do that, led me to very profound questions about the reality of existence, why we are here, why we do these things, what can be done about it. So I thought by studying the human physiology and medicine, I will come to answers, because I thought that everything was actually coming from a physical material reality that builds on itself and then becomes our nervous system, and then consciousness as if emerges from that, and then we have thoughts and feelings and behaviors. And so if we fix the chemistry and the biology, we might be able to fix the mind and the awareness and the decision making. So I studied this from that side, but I found that medicine didn't have enough really knowledge of that part of our reality. So I went into psychiatry for a while, but it was also dealing with disease and mental illness. And then I was really lucky to be accepted at MIT, because I thought if I do research myself, then maybe I'll find something from the neuroscientific perspective. I was also accepted at Harvard in the neurology department. And again, I found there are beautiful things that are available in these fields of neuroscience and neurology and psychiatry, but they didn't answer the big questions. And they didn't really look into the meaning of life, why people truly make decisions like that. Why do we suffer? Do we have freedom? Is it all determined? Some of the very big questions in life. At the same time, like you, Marci, I had learned Transcendental Meditation. And I found that it was giving me a wholeness, a fullness in my life that was beyond just the simple adjustments from a medical perspective. And as I became interested in it more and more, I became a teacher of Transcendental Meditation. And that propelled me into trying to see what can be done from the mind level, not only from the physical, medical level, but from the level of consciousness, from the level of awareness. And here is where I truly discovered the miracles of life, the true miracles of life. And I was lucky, again, that is a big miracle for me, to be with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and to be trained by him when I completed my studies and my research and my fellowship in this medical field, and to study things from actually the consciousness perspective. So first I thought there were two things. There is the material aspect of life and the consciousness aspect of life. And some philosophers and scientists say that consciousness comes from the functioning of the body. But there are many questions that are left unanswered when you take this angle. So I dive deep into what is consciousness, because consciousness is primary. Without consciousness, we don't know anything, we don't experience anything. Without consciousness, we don't feel love, we don't feel miracles, we don't feel pain, we don't feel joys, we don't understand anything. Imagine oneself without being conscious, like in coma or in a state of deep anesthesia. So it became clearer and clearer to me that consciousness is actually life, is what we call life. Without consciousness, we don't exist in a real sense. I mean, we can say that in dream or in sleeping, we don't have the same consciousness as in waking, which is obvious. But in sleep, it is still a state of consciousness because the body is conscious. If you make a noise or if something happens, the body wakes up, and that means it has sensed, it has detected, it was aware of something from a different level of awareness than the waking level of awareness. And also our body is always calculating and sensing things on subconscious level and deep level of consciousness. So consciousness is truly all permeating. And so my miracle in life has been to come also then to be given this responsibility on the level of transcendental meditation and all that for the whole world. So from where I was and the complications of life and the doom and gloom and the horrible things, when I was in Boston going on the streets when I first arrived there, I would look around and I would say, wow, is it possible that there is a place where bombs don't fall, where there is no fighting? Wow. And so I came a long way, and I'm really glad to be on a show where we talk about miracles.
Well, I so appreciate you sharing that story. I'd never heard that story, and I so honor your interest in experiencing the truth of life, the depth of life, the biggest questions of life, because it would have been easy for you to go along as a doctor and just do the doctor thing, but you really cared about what is the meaning of life. And I feel equally blessed that I got to have the experiences of consciousness. As a teenager, I became a teacher of Transcendental Meditation when I was 19. And I just have seen so much shifts in people's lives, including my own, from studying and experiencing a deeper level of consciousness. And so I talk about miracles. The dictionary defines a miracle as a surprise and welcome event that can't be explained by science and that's often attributed to divine grace. So we can't create miracles. They're a gift of the divine. But what we can do is we can create the conditions for living in the place where miracles happen. And that's what I call living in the miracle zone. And that's what we refer to as this field of unbounded awareness, of infinite, unbounded ocean of consciousness. And that's where the flow of synchronicity and freedoms come from. And when you are connected to that, you're in the flow. So I would love for you, from your perspective, to speak about the connection between consciousness and this living in the miracle zone.
That's beautiful. It really comes to our deserving ability. I do not believe that the divine, the supreme, is disorderly or moody. I believe that it has a sense of perfection. It is perfection and orderliness and fairness and justice. And therefore, it would not give something without deservability, whether it is correcting something that needs to be corrected and that we experience sometimes as maybe a setback or even some pain or something like that, that is telling us something that we need to pay attention to in our life, or a gift of the divine, as you say, which we surrender to the will of the divine and see that it happens to us. But my belief and my study and my thinking about consciousness is that this can be part of a set of laws, a set of interactions, a set of relations that are logical, that are understandable, and that are really on the level of deservability. So the grace of the divine that makes things happen in a miraculous way are also part of the will of God, if you like, the will of the divine, which are the laws of nature and the laws of life, which are themselves the will of how things should be and how things are better in order to have always higher and higher evolution. So consciousness comes in this, in the sense that when we are stressed and strained and have very limited awareness, because this is what happens when our consciousness is overwhelmed by fear and stress, and when we make the wrong decisions in our life and accumulate, stressful and constraining conditions, then what happens to us is we don't make the right choices. And sometimes we can enter into some cycles where things aren't working well for us. And in that moment, some people go back to themselves. They have a deep revelation, a deep sense of connectedness. And this is when you, in a sense, talk to the divine and inspire the divine. That's why in religions and belief systems, there is this coming back to the self, coming back to surrender to the will of God, coming back to asking for whatever forgiveness or support or help. And that is when the help can come. So the miracle happens in consciousness based on how deep our consciousness is, how clear our awareness is, and how it is in tune with the will of God, how it is in tune with the will of the divine, how it is in tune with the will of nature, if we want to speak scientifically. And so there are these moments where one comes back to the self. And there are techniques, as we are talking. Transcendental meditation allows us to settle within ourselves, remove our stresses, see clearly. And when we come to ourselves, we really coming to the kingdom of the divine, to the field of pure being. And that is the field of pure consciousness. And from that field, we can make a difference on the surface level. Because after all our actions, all our decisions, all our conflicts or peaceful undertakings happen through our mind, through our awareness. So our consciousness is the basis of that. And how much we can see in terms of present, past, future, expanding our awareness to include as many people in our perception as possible, which means opening ourselves, our heart, to more and more and more of life itself, including everything in it, its environment, its trees, its people, its animals, and particularly its traditions, whatever they are. The more we are expanding our awareness to take in all these differences and be able to accept them and embrace them and use them for the good, the more we are acting in a deserving ability, and the more what appears to happen to us as a miracle is actually becoming more natural in a sense.
That's beautiful. And so one thing I just want to make sure that I think I'm understanding correctly. I want to make sure that everybody understands that we each have an inherent worthiness. It's not about being worthy or unworthy, but it's about how aligned we are with the laws of nature, how aligned we are with the aligned consciousness and the depth of truth. And so the deservability is not about our inherent worthiness. It's actually about how the universe is kind of guiding us towards what is more expanded and true and conscious. How would you explain
absolutely that? It's absolutely that. Because in my book, Consciousness is All There Is, I come to the conclusion that we are all that supreme consciousness that is the ocean of being, that is actually hiding itself as if within each of us. And so how can our inherent deservability be more than being actually the closest thing, the closest entities to the divine, because it is our essence, it is our being. And so, and there is no question that everything that happens, even if it looks like not always happy and not always joyful, it is actually guiding us in the direction. So it is the compassion, the love, the support from the forces of nature to correct us and guide us. We take the example, if a child has the hands dirty and they have dried mud on their hand, and then the mother or the father, whoever, the caretaker, wants to clean the hands, but it's a little bit painful because they have to rub it and all of that. So then the caretaker will actually wash the hand and clean it for the well-being of the child. And if there is, a wound or something and you put some soap, it's going to hurt a little bit. And the child will cry and feel it's unfair. And they might think, the caretaker doesn't love them, making them suffer. But the caretaker will do it anyway, because this is how you protect the child. This is how you guide them to be healthy. And so even the things that might happen that appear negative, ultimately they are alarms, they are indications that something has to be done. Even pain, without pain, we don't survive much longer because we would hurt ourselves. We would put our hand in the fire and we don't feel it because if there is no pain. So the system that has pain in it is just to tell us there are places you shouldn't go. There are places you don't put your hand. There are things you don't do. And all of this is part of the supreme compassion and love of the divine, wanting us to always grow and expand our consciousness and expand our happiness and awareness.
Einstein said, one of my favorite Einstein quotes is that the most important question we can ask ourselves is this a benevolent universe? And the answer is yes, it is a benevolent universe. And even though things are happening that you think aren't what you would perhaps choose, it's always in your favor. Life is always for us, pointing us towards this greater state of awakening or connection to consciousness. So Consciousness is All There Is your newest book, as you've mentioned, and I love it. And what would you say is the one most important point for us to understand that would help our lives?
We have within us the full potential to live a happy, healthy life. And that is a potential that can be uncovered, and we can really be a master of our destiny. So we have within us a supreme value of creativity, of intelligence. It doesn't have to be mathematical or physics intelligence, can be emotional intelligence, can be creative intelligence. But whatever it is, we are different because we are an expression of the creativity of being and wanting to have all kinds of expressions of itself. But we are as dear to that infinite ocean of consciousness as anything else. And it's enough to know it, to experience it, in order to live a happy, wholesome life.
Well, I totally agree with all of that you said. And I'm just so thrilled that you put it together in this beautiful and important book. And I just have one last question for you. We live in such challenging times. And I know that a lot of people who are listening here really, they care about their own lives, of course, but we also care about the world. I mean, we're concerned about the environment and about the climate and about the crises, the wars, the political divides. So How does our individual consciousness affect the collective consciousness? If I'm doing this for myself, what is that doing for the world?
It is a two-way interaction. The collective consciousness helps us, and we help, or we create. We are part of what creates the collective consciousness. I usually take the example of the human brain, which has 90 billion about neurons. And each neuron is actually a living entity that digests, that breathes, that reacts to environmental changes in itself. In a way, for me, it has consciousness. It's a limited consciousness, but it has consciousness. It is consciousness because the title of the book, Consciousness is All There Is. So animals have consciousness, trees have consciousness. And so I expand about consciousness, not that only human-like consciousness, but it could be animal-like consciousness, tree-like consciousness, and they don't have to be human-like. So we don't say, okay, the tree has a feeling about the future and is afraid of what's going to happen to it, and it has a sense of ego and it gets angry or like that. Although it can have some of these values, but it's much, much more limited. So consciousness is on a range. And now comes to the human dynamics. So when you put these neurons together, they create a consciousness. They allowed, let me say it more accurately, they allow us to experience a consciousness which is more than a single neuron by itself can experience. So one neuron experiences very limited consciousness. At 90 billion neurons together, they experience much broader level of consciousness. And that's what we call our human individual consciousness. Now, we are like neurons in a society. Although we seem like not to be connected as neurons are directly electrically or chemically connected, but we are profoundly connected with each other. And together, we create what is called collective consciousness, which is the result of the activity, the feeling, the thinking, the decision-making of all of us collectively. And so how do you improve this collective consciousness so that the collective behavior improves? Is by improving individual consciousness. The good thing that we have found through hundreds of scientific research studies is that when a small group of people are settled within themselves and practice this program of transcending, going back to the self, their mind settles down, like diving deep into the ocean of consciousness and reaching the bottom of the ocean rather than being tossed around on the surface as the waves or as situations and circumstances toss us around, but settle within ourselves. And when a critical number is reached, we have seen reduction in crime, reduction in conflict, reduction in accidents of the roads, reduction in hospital admissions, and many, many other positive factors that happen in society as a whole. So the good thing is we don't need everyone to start tomorrow meditating, but it's enough that some of us settle down within themselves, that we can see an improvement in society. And when there is an improvement in society, that also improves the individual, because we are ultimately very deeply connected, much more than what it appears on the surface. We really are the sap of life appearing as different aspects, but it's the same sap, it's the same feel, it's the same consciousness appearing in different forms and shapes and qualities and whatever abilities in different people. So we are deeply connected, and nothing that happens anywhere is left without having an influence on us. So a peaceful world, a peaceful environment, a balanced life is healthy and happy for the individuals, and individuals creating that within themselves are nourishing and creating positive effects for the whole world. So that is why it's a two-way pathway between individual and collectivity.
Yes, and it's such good news that we don't need everybody in the world to be at this deeper level of consciousness, let's say, but there's what you were referring to is something that's often been referred to as the Maharishi effect, where and maybe you could explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, in the 1970s, Maharishi felt that when a small number of people, and he predicted 1%, practice transcendental meditation, then we should see a change in society because of different phenomena in physics and what is called Meissner effect and the laser effect. And when we see a small number of things getting harmonious, then there is a collectivity becoming more harmonious. So he predicted that, and the scientists went around and found the cities where 1% of the people were practicing transcendental meditation, and they indeed found a reduction in crime compared to control groups where this was not being done. So they pushed this study, and we study it more and more. And then Maharishi brought a more advanced technique called the Siddhi program, where not only you transcend, but you learn how to think from that field. So you activate the ocean of consciousness from its profound level. And that he predicted also that it will have a much bigger effect. And what we found is the square root of 1% is enough when people practice this program together. And this has been done many, many times with control groups. And there have been studies that were published in peer-reviewed journals that show we can really make a difference as individuals. So nobody should feel unable to do things and it's beyond us. It's really actually within us. And going back to ourselves, we are actually creating happiness within ourselves, but our happiness is contributing to the collective happiness, to the collective well-being. So our responsibility is within ourselves. We don't have to go out of ourselves or even be activists on the outside, although those who feel this is their devotion and their call in life, of course, they do what they like, but it is not even necessary. From consciousness, we can transform things. We can transform reality on the surface. We can create miracles. And they are called miracles in that case because people don't understand the mechanism of how it happens. Now, that is where the book comes to try really to explain how miracles work, how our deservability increases, how we can make our life better, how we can see miracles happen in our life, and how we can create miracles on the social level, on the collective level. And that is something we can do. It is not left to, some good luck or some, unfathomable logic or reason, but it's something we can truly do.
And that is just such great news that it is really within our, and not only is it within our power, I actually think it's why we are each here. It is the purpose of our lives to live in this way. And so I'm thrilled about consciousness is all there is, because it is the truth. And the book really shares it in such a way that is easy to understand and very inspiring and practical. And so as we close up, I just want to know if there are any other things you would like to share with us about your work, about consciousness is all there is, about anything we've spoken about.
Miracles are real, and we can understand how they happen also. So it doesn't have to be outside the field of science. If we understand life as based on consciousness, then we can understand the process by which consciousness leads to phenomena that appear miraculous, because life is not just physical and material. Physical and material are only an appearance. And so understanding and experiencing consciousness can allow us to live a miraculous life. And everyone's birthright is to live a miraculous, beautiful, healthy, happy life.
Thank you so, so much. You are such a bright light, a brilliant mind, bright light, beautiful heart. And I just always feel very uplifted in your presence. So I am going to encourage, of course, everyone to go get a copy of Consciousness is All There Is. You can find out more about Dr. Nader and his work at drnader.com. books.com. We'll, of course, put that in the show notes. And I want to close with a quote from Dr. Nader, who said that consciousness is all permeating. When you improve your own individual consciousness, you are actually improving the consciousness of society. So, Dr. Nader, thank you so much for being with us today. It was just beautiful.
Thanks to you and to all you are doing. All the best.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone here for listening to this today. I hope that you are feeling inspired and uplifted and more in the miracle zone after our time together. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please share the Miracle Zone love with your friends and family. You could also go take our free 2-minute quiz to find out what your miracle superpower is. You just go to miraclezonequiz.com. And remember that your life of miracles is waiting for you. As Dr. Nader just said, it is your birthright. And simply by being here and listening to this, you are taking a step forward into the miracle zone. Lots of love to you.